Good morning. Hand today is going to be 5-2 offsuit in a 10 NL game. We are early position. This hand, everyone folds the blind, so this is a blind versus blind hand. I thought it was pretty good to look at because blind versus blind is usually some of the weakest of my play, anyways, and at least judging ranges, especially in a spot like this where small blind limps and big blind checks. What are they doing this with? And we've got 102 hands, 171 hands here. We're going to put together the best ranges that we could, see how they fit, and move from there. It doesn't always happen, especially if I'm in the big blind. I'm not usually playing it this way at all. So it's just if small blind limps, I'm looking at raising a huge part of my hand. If it's folded around to me to the small blind, I'm raising huge portion of my range. I mean, I've got a massive range when it comes to the small blind, and to the big blind too. It's a little bit different if the small blind raises, then we're actually calling wider than what you would actually think because we're in position against a small blind. But here to see a limp and then a check, you've got a big range. So small blind limper playing 27-4, and this is actually pretty hard because when we look at what he's played 2 out of 10 hands in the small blind. I don't have any limp first in stats. I've tried to look to see, well, is he calling a 2-bet? He's called once. And then it's kind of an unknown what else he's done. Small blind, he hasn't attempted to steal at all with a raise. So we're kind of left in a tough spot of trying to figure out how do we build his range. So all that we can do is really look at his VPIP hands. I mean, he's playing early position, looks tight 1 out of 23, but then he's playing 31%, 23%, 50%, and 56%. And of course, these are, we don't have a huge sample size on it, but 11 out of 35 from mid position suggests he's going to be looser, suggests he's going to be a little bit passive. So what I did was just kind of went up and said, okay, let's start with, like a 54% range or so, and then start adding and subtracting hands. I think you've got your A6 hands, your King X hands are probably all checks, your suited queens are probably all checks. We may add like Jack 6, 10, 6 suited. You've got suited connectors, suited one gappers. I think you've got offsuit connectors, offsuit one gappers. I'm kind of eliminating like the weakest, like 3, 2, 4, 2 on there. But then I'm also have to look at, okay, what hands would he have raised? And I'd like to think he would be raising all of these, but going back to his 27-4, he looks to be overly passive. So I think what we're going to do is add some of these pocket pairs back and say he's probably going to be raising like jacks, queens, kings, maybe tens, ace jack plus, maybe king queen, so maybe something closer to that. So we're at 57%, and I think we're just going to go with that. This next villain's playing 16-12, so he is going to be a bit more aggressive. You can see his raise for sin stat is higher, closer to his VPIP. So 19-19 for the pre-flop raise versus VPIP. He's coming in with raises. In this case, he's called a 2-bet once out of the big blind. Out of the big blind, he has folded blind to steal 3 out of 3 times. So I do think he's going to be playing a little bit tighter. But I also think that if he's going to be coming in, he's going to be coming in with a raise. So I basically gave him 100% of his hands because he can check behind with 10-2 offsuit if he wanted to. And then it's thinking about, okay, what hands is he going to be raising with? I think he's going to probably be raising with 9s plus, and then like the suited connectors. How far do we go? Do we include 10-9 and Jack 10? And that's offsuit connectors as well. Do we include them or not? I kind of think like, yeah, Jack 10's probably going to be a raise. 10-9, 9-8, these hands are questionable, but I think we've got a raising range here where he's going to be aggressive with those. I don't think he's going to be too aggressive, though. based on his stats, but it could be wrong. So we're going to go with this range here. And then we go to a flop. So the flop is queen 9-7 with 2 clubs. So we're in this pot where really no one has shown any sort of aggression whatsoever. And we see this time and time again, especially in live games where it goes, you get limps around and the button limps. What do we do? How do we handle it? It was in a live game where the house always took $1 out of the pot before the flop. So there's no benefit to chopping. You couldn't just take your blinds back. The house was always taking $1. So the convention was, why chop and lose $1? I mean, somebody's going to lose $1. So let's just play. Put small blind puts in $1 and to complete, and then let's see how it plays out. So that casino is like the only casino that I've been to that does this blind versus blind play. And occasionally you'll see it in other live casinos, but most of the time it's they ask for a chop and person says no. Well, they're usually having like a pair or some sort of suited connector and they're hoping for it, like the bad beat or whatever, and it's like, come on. Anyways, we're in this situation, queen 9-7, villain checks, no big surprise. I think though we could narrow his range just a little bit. I do think that if he has like a good top pair hand, he's probably going to be betting. So I'm going to scale this down and say 50% of the time he would have bet that queen 10 and the queen jack hand. And I think maybe the rest he'll probably just check. I think he would probably be betting everything above that top pair. I don't think he looks too passive to be betting his draws. So we did narrow his range down just a little bit, and then villain 4 checks behind. Once he goes check check, it's tempted for a big blind to go ahead and bet, and he could. I mean, this guy already checked, already kind of suggests he doesn't have a top pair, but that villain could easily have one of the under pairs. And I think if big blind bet, this villain's probably calling with these and probably calling with the straws, but still, he should probably go ahead and attack. So did we say he checked? Yep, he checked. So that eliminates 2 pair. I think that eliminates the same thing. I think that completely eliminates his queen 10 hand, possibly the queen 8. And then I'm gonna scale this back and basically say maybe a third of the time he would have checked. Actually, no, let's do 50%. Because these are weaker kickers. I would have expected him to bet those. I kind of expect him to bet the middle pair. His c-bet stat's pretty high. This is a board where, again, it's blind versus blind. There's no bets pre-flop. The pot's small. He could easily just take a stab at it with a very wide range. And it looks like he would do this 6 out of 10, 6 out of 7. So actually, I'm going to eliminate top pair completely. I'm going to eliminate middle pair completely. I'm going to leave the bottom pair, all the weaker hands. I think the flush draws, we're going to probably scale that back to 50% and say 50% of the time, I think he would have bet with his flush draw. And I think same thing with the open ender. Just kind of scale them down. So what we are going to do is X those so they don't get included in any of the flush draws or whatever. Alright, so this guy kind of just lost a lot of his strength. 9 of hearts comes out. Villain 3 checks. Again, no one's showing aggression, so I can't believe that he would have three of a kind. I think top pair would probably bet again. We can scale it down to 50% and say, well, I think 50% of the time he would have bet here in this case. What happened? Oh yeah, okay, so he did have 50% of those top pairs. So yeah, we're gonna scale it down even more for top pair 50%. That kind of leaves weak pair, no pair. also has some of the draws and stuff. So we'll just X those out. And then the next villain. So at this point, so I kind of feel like, based on how the hand goes, I mean, it's a he completed and then he checked, and on the flop he checks. This guy should be betting, and if this guy checks behind, then this guy should be betting the turn. Somebody needs to be betting, even if you've got junkie. Somebody should take a stab at it. Obviously, you want to bet when you have some sort of draw, some sort of backup. So if you get called, you actually have a shot at improving. But in these situations, especially at like a 10NL game, just bet one big blind, see what happens. And of course, you bet if he bet on the flop and then the 9 comes and he checks, I'd bet that again. I mean, very easily, this guy could very easily have a 9, and get villain through to fold, and you're doing that with a lot of your junk. You're just playing the player at this point. All right, so then this guy checks behind. So yeah, at this point you can see that it is just weak pair or worse. That's it. Maybe we could eliminate the flush draw and open ender and the gut shots. Possibility. All right, Queen of Diamonds. Now it's going to be the ace high hand. That's what's going to win it. So villain checks here. Definitely, I'm excluding full house. I think he would be betting that. We're looking at ace high or nothing. That's it. What does villain 4 say? He checks behind. Again, ace high or nothing. That's all I could think of. So villain shows Jack 10. This guy shows 5-6. So small blind Jack 10, big blind 5-6. So are both of those in their range? Yeah, they are. Very passive. And again, we can think about exploitative play and say, even if you're this guy 5-6 and you choose not to raise a pre-flop, fine. But as soon as it goes check on the flop, you should bet. You've got a gut shot here. You've got a gut shot. You should bet. If he calls, he calls, and then on the turn, I would bet again. I mean, you still have the gut shot. There's a 9 out there. You could easily have a 9. You could have been easily betting with a 7, a 9, or a queen. You could be betting with 8-10 with an open ender. You could be betting with a flush draw. You've got a lot of hands that you could be continuing to bet. This guy should be attacking, and when he doesn't, then this guy should be turning around and attacking. Again, he's got an open ender here. He should be betting, and I wouldn't mind him leading on the flop because he does have a backdoor straight draw, or a backdoor flush draw with the clubs. So he bets and he calls, and then I'd bet the turn again. And then if he calls again, I think then you're looking at like a checking. I don't think I would go for a third barrel here. So that's the play, blind versus blind. I'm gonna jot down some of my own notes. I don't think it's worthwhile to really go through GTO because this is just again, you could argue checking all the way down because you don't want to get check raised or whatever. You've got junk or you have some draws, but this is, you see it at the micro stakes. I think it's less likely to happen as you move up in stakes. So even some of the 10NL games, you won't see it get down to everyone folding the small blind just completes. So hopefully you enjoy this. If you do, be aggressive. Come back tomorrow and watch some more stuff.